so everybody will be able to um, see what is happening here, and you'll be able to watch it a bit later on if you don't make it. Jem, hope you're good. Um, Wants to know about the 50 EMA, so that's no problem at all. It's just a moving average, and I always say, I mean, we can go. Let's just go over this first, and then we've done it. That's no problem at all. So I have, pe pe people have lots of different EMAs that they obviously want to have up. I have the 50. You can even have the 50 and the 200, and obviously this might be an extra confluence, but that's all I have it as. Obviously, what is a confluence? Confluence is a reason why you're going to take a trade. It's just a nice extra thing to kind of add into your, arsenal where, you can obviously add in that extra confidence. Like, for example, if you were going to take, let's just go here. So if you were going to take, this isn't the best example, of course it's not. There we go. Right. Say for some reason here you had, CAD longs. All right, because obviously we've got, it's trending above the 50 EMA, moving average, that would mean that yes, there is, more chance whilst it's above or a higher probability, whilst it's above to obviously, send this higher. Glad you're recording. Yeah, so I would just obviously add this as an extra confluence. What some people also do, and I'll show you here. Moving average, I've obviously got it highlighted. So some people also have the 200. All right, you can have loads of, different yeah, kind of aspects. As you can see here, it kind of means the same thing. So if you're 50 is trading above the 200, it is, an uptrend. If it's trading below, it's a downtrend. But one thing I will say about EMAs and any indicator that you use, just be careful, all right? Because every indicator from the RSI to the, moving average to anything is a lagging indicator. All right, it means it represents what has happened, as opposed to some people presume, right, you know what, I'm going to take a trade every time it touches this EMA. I'm going to take that trade, long, long. However, what you will, find is when this candle happens, all right, this EMA won't appear here. All right, it will and this is obviously where you need to be aware of this. So you just go back on here and I can raise this up. So there are certain people out there obviously selling strategies where you just trade the EMA. It doesn't happen. It looks brilliant on back testing. It really does. Look at this one here. We've broke below. Entry here, brilliant. Yeah, we would call all these pips, but the realistic outlook is whilst this candle's happening, right? It won't be until probably about here where the EMA will touch it. It will be trending whilst you're trending these. It will be somewhere around here, all right? But then when probably this candle kicks in, right, that's when the EMA will adjust and obviously touch, but it will only touch probably about here. And by that time, the trade, yeah, yes, obviously this one's carried on, but the kind of realistic entry will have gone. So just be aware of that. Now, one thing that, for those of you who have never logged into a Sunday live before, I think of it as my kind of homework. All right. So the more work you put in on a, Sunday, the obviously easier Monday to Friday is going to be. All right. So the first thing I do before anything, like I always say, you don't have to understand the news, you just have to be aware of it. All right. So I'd be looking into, Monday, and I'd be thinking, right, you know what? We've got obviously two, speakers from the ECB speaking. We've got Fed member. Waller speaking, we got Williams speaking, and we got Bostic speaking. Do you know what? I haven't done it in a while, but there is a chart, all right? And I'll dig the chart up. It will tell you all of the members, and are they historically more what they call hawkish, more optimistic, or are they yeah, historically dovish, where they'd be more kind of pessimistic. All right, so that there is a chart which will tell you, and normally in regards to speakers, it will only move markets if they say something out of the ordinary. All right, so if for example, Bob Bostic, I'm pretty sure he's normally quite pessimistic. If he comes out and he's normally like down in the dumps low, and he comes out and he's like, you know what, the economy's going incredible, I can't wait to see what happens the last quarter, wow, we're smashing it, the markets are going to fly, because if he's convinced, then everyone is, and that's how you've got to kind of think about it. So not a lot happening, not a lot of market moving news tomorrow. It's more going to be optimism and anticipation. All right, Tuesday, China, we're not too worried. We just like to keep a bit of an eye on it. However, we've got GDP data, so this is going to be quite important. It's come in as expected. Majority of the time. So far. So just be aware of that. But this is one that you should, write down in your notes, make a, little note of it to, think, right, you know what, I need to be careful trading the pound on Tuesday morning. Yeah. So obviously that's one thing that you really need to be aware of. And then coming into the afternoon, we've got a little bit of HPI, but it's not going to move a lot. And then a little bit later, we got consumer confidence for for the US dollar, and some Chicago PMI too. So you need to be aware of this. All right. You don't have to understand it. You can learn that gradually, but you don't want to be trading coming into this type of news. You just want to be aware that it is happening, and it could obviously affect it. Then we got Wednesday. We got obviously a Chinese bank holiday. Lots of you will obviously ask, why have I got China on here? We don't obviously trade, China. However, you've got to understand in regards to trade partners, who trades with who. Who's gonna which economy is going to be affected, by, say, for example, a Chinese national bank holiday. Now, who's heavily linked in or kind of dependent on China, and that is Australia. So we'll obviously recap this on Wednesday, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see with yeah, national day for China. It'll be interesting to see, how the Australian, market is reacting by their biggest trade partner, obviously having a holiday. So that's one thing we're going to look into. We then obviously got HPI data for the pound, and then we've got CPI data, which is inflation data for euro. So we'd obviously have to be aware of the pound and euro. And then obviously in the afternoon, it gets a bit juicy towards the end of the week. So we're leading into non-farm payroll. Sometimes Wednesday, has a bit of an implication as to what's going to happen. I think it's going to either hit target, or I think it's going to yeah, I just think this non-farm payroll is going to be a good one, because they haven't got a very big target. It's been so bad. All they've got to do as a country is increase. Let's just skip here to Friday. So all they've got to do as a country is make sure that they have, 51, well, probably over 22,000 new jobs. The obviously target is double that. I think anything over that, it's going to be pretty positive. You got to think, the US dollar as a whole, what is kind of happening. They've been calling for a rate reduction. They've got one. Now it's all about, what they are, how the kind of overall markets are reacting, So that'll be interesting. Friday morning, not a lot. Got some Euro PMI. And then Thursday we skipped over, but we've obviously just got jobless claims and the unemployment rate for euro. So what you want to be doing is, making a, note as to what is coming up and what the potential could be. So these are obviously things that you 100% want to be writing down, and then slowly, obviously, over time, you can start to understand them. Nice cup of tea here. Living on the edge this Sunday night. Right. Let's now have a look into the charts. Now, what I tend to do on a Sunday evening is I will have a look at the overall kind of time frame here. All right. And the first one, which I can kind of start off with, is the dollar. I do think, although it was not a bad week for the dollar, we're obviously still trending where we obviously have been since sort of middle of July, whereas you're trending in this consolidation. We haven't broken to the downside, we haven't broken to the upside yet. So that kind of tells me that, 500, I'm going to actually mark 99 on here right now. 99, this is going to be that key area. Are we going to break out? But again, we're obviously going to have to wait and see. We've had a huge rejection here. Last week, so potentially we're obviously always looking to pull to the upside here. Let's have a look on the daily. Friday obviously wasn't such a great day for the US dollar, but still we're trading in this consolidation here, but we haven't really there's actually no trend here. All right, because we're technically trending to the downside, but then we've made this equal high here. Yeah, literally to an absolute T. Equal high means that, if you look at the previous high, which was here, right, we've obviously made an equal high, which is here. All right, so this wouldn't really give me any indication into any trades or anything. It kind of leaves us a little bit clueless as to what's happening. However, if we look at this on a weekly and potentially a monthly, because we're coming into month end here, it does look like a good recovery here. All right, so that's we'll wait and see. We do have well, there's not a lot of data coming out Monday, Tuesday, so it'll be quite interesting. But yeah, dollars kind of, if we're looking on the higher time frames, yes, it's looking very, very bullish. Although we had a bearish, Friday, it's not like it did anywhere near what it did Wednesday and Thursday. So you kind of want to start to paint a picture as to what is happening here. All right. So what I would potentially do, let's mark up euro, all right, from start to finish, and then we'll just have a look at what we'll kind of think here. All right. Now this is obviously historical data here from euro, from obviously whenever 2002 on the monthly time frame here. So let's have a look here, and we'll kind of gauge, what is happening here. Now, we can't obviously write off this. All we're going to do is mark up some kind of key areas where prices, kind of struggled to obviously break through. So we've also got these ones, this one here. I would say I'd put in probably let's go a little bit lower. Let's go something like this. All right, we've obviously had two nice rejections here, nice rejection here, rejection here. Let's go a little bit below here. We don't want to go crazy because we've got to remember that this is a monthly time frame here. Yeah, And then, as you're looking back, you can obviously see here where the rejections are. All right. So if we're going to go and look at this on a weekly, I'm actually, yeah, let's leave these here. Let's get rid of this one because it's too high. All right. So weekly time frame, what has been happening and what is happening here. We've obviously had this nice trend. All right. Had a lovely trend here. Now we're kind of squashed. All right. You can see here we've got lots of rejections to the downside, but then we've got this horrible rejection here. So it's not really telling us anything. All right, let's go on a daily here. Right, you can see here. Let's just go on a daily here. Right, overall, is where I recommend using a highlighter tool. You can see here we were trending to the upside. Yeah, right. Nice trend, keeps on trending. And then obviously we've had our equal high, right? You can see here, and then a lower low, but obviously then we've carried on trending to the upside. But price is very, very, small here. It's not really doing a hell of a lot. You could argue we've got something like this, a little channel here. Have we broken out of it? This is obviously one thing that we, need to be aware of here. And if we're looking at the daily kind of views here, let's mark daily with arrows, and then at least we know what we've marked up. So this would be one, t target here. You can see here, right? It's broken obviously back through. Um, That would be a good one. And just marking these up, well, once you start marking these up, I recommend everybody clears their charts every single week. I've cleared all of mine. All right. They're completely blank. All right. So what these will do, they would just help you to kind of, if you are in a trade potentially to the downside here, they're just going to give you the potential, targets here of where price could, swing, to the downside, but then struggle to break through. All right. If we were, looking to trade this to the downside, and obviously I'll explain what I'm, looking at in a bit, but obviously, as soon as we start to get to the 8 hour, so daily, we've obviously had that confirmation. Price was trending this way, as you can see here. Price obviously broke straight back into this channel, and it's been trending in here. Now we've broken through. We should technically, on a technical perspective, we should see a push to the downside here. All right. So where are we gonna look, potentially, for our entries? And my potential entries, one of them would be here, right? This would probably be the only potential entry would be here. I'd like to see something like this happen, and then some downside movement. We'll obviously have to, see how much downside movement we can get. If this one breaks here, right? If this breaks, then, yes, we would be potentially just monitoring this level here. All right. But if price then breaks through here too, we'll be looking to obviously take this to the upside here. All right. But to me, I want it to break through this, and this. That'll be three brick walls there that is broken through. And yeah, if we've smashed through all of these, we'll be looking to take this trade here. So that is what I would be looking at on Euro. So I'd have one of two. Let's just go back and delete these. I'd either have this one here, taking it potentially down to here, probably not that far, but something like this, or I'd want to be doing something like this here, where we're taking it to the upside here, and potentially capitalizing on a nice, move up here. So these would be my kind of two scenarios on the euro. and it all encounters what happens in this area here. Now, what you obviously want to, think about, this is one thing that I don't think is, spoken about enough, is, you always want to be pre-planning. I always think, even on a lower time frame here, if you pre-plan and, your plan kind of works out, like, if price drifts up here and it really, can't break this, and then we get this move here, it, even if you're not confident enough to take it, but you've marked it out, what's that going to do? That's going to give you that extra confidence potentially on the next one to take it. So let's go for a random one now. Let's go for, I mean, we've done Euro USD. Let's go for a GBP JPY here. Yeah, right. Let's have a look at yen on the overall picture. Monthly wise, what has been happening. We obviously have been trending to the upside here. Let's just get rid of this alert here. It will go. I might need to refresh my page. There we go. And then we'll go back on here. So GBP, JPY. There we go. Right. There we go. Nice clean slate here. All right. So we'll go back to our monthly here. Where's kind of the key levels here which we want to be looking out for? Well, one would be here. Right. I'm not gonna even look at the rest of the screen, and then obviously I'll show you how accurate they are once you obviously start to mark them all up. So we obviously want to be aware of this one here. Something like potentially I'd go in between there. And then obviously we can look a bit lower here, potentially here. It's just out of interest. I don't normally mark the wicks, but if we've got nothing close, then I probably would. Right, let's leave this here, and then let's scroll back. Look, where's this one reacted here? Right, we didn't even see that. All right, and then we can start to kind of see. Look here. All right, rejected it, broke through, retested one more time. All right, these look how many rejections we've got here. S Tons. All right, broke above the rather than this level getting rejected, it held and then it's pushed up higher. All right, so you can obviously see how important these levels are. Now let's go on to a weekly here. All right, what is happening technically on a weekly? I'd class this as a nice uptrend here. Yeah, it's a very nice uptrend. We've obviously rejected. This would go hand in hand with potentially taking Euro USD to the downside, right, and potentially targeting this higher area here. Right, so I'd probably leave this here because there is nothing. There's a potential weekly here, which we've struggled a bit to get through. Let's have a look at the daily. Even better. All right, so what's obviously happening here, right? Daily time frame is kind of stuck here in this consolidation. Let's leave this as purple. All right, so we've breached up into this area since the 12th of August. We haven't been able to break out in either direction here. Yeah. All right. So what this would tell me, and let's then go on an 8 hour, same thing, struggling, trends a bit all over the place. We did break, but obviously we're coming back to to test again. 4 hour too, we're obviously broke down here, but we've now, started this uptrend here. All right. And then we obviously have to be looking right. Well, where are these kind of brick walls here? All right, let's leave this for obviously this one here. Let's leave this on the 4 hour time frame here. All right, so where would you say obviously the brick walls are here? Well, we obviously know that we got this trend, right? So this channel, we know that this is 1 2, but obviously we need to be aware this happened last time, so we'd obviously want to be looking for potential this to break and then obviously retest. But that would be kind of two there that we're, squished into. All right. So what I would like to see, let me just get rid of these, is I personally would like to see this trade happen here. All right. It's a huge one. It doesn't look like much, but it's a big trade. So I'd want to see this one here happen. All right. And if I was wanting to pre-plan it, then yes, I'd want to see this break. I'd want to see a nice retest, and then I want to see a nice continuation up to this, level here, because we know since the 12th of August we haven't properly, broken out of it. What would be the best scenario here is on a daily time frame. This breaks out, right? Clears these. It breaks out and then it retests on, say for example Tuesday, and then we get this nice move up here. So that's what I would like to, see if on Tuesday we've obviously had a daily close above on, Monday tomorrow, and we get that nice retest. This would be a very, very high percentage trade to take. Um, to me, on the downside, my worry is, now that obviously we've got these levels in here, we've obviously got this to break through and this to break through to even come and test this. All right. Whereas on the upside, we've only got one brick wall to break through. Here we've got three. So that's why I would probably err on the for favor to take this to the upside here. So that is, overall what I'd be looking in regards to what is potentially might happen here. Now, do you guys have any questions? Any questions at all? Happy to go through anything. We've obviously got a few minutes left. Just obviously drop the questions in the chat. It's not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. Any questions? No? No one's got any. Oh, here we go. Gem. How does NZD USD look to you? Well, let's have a look. One thing I will mention about NZD USD is the daily range, and obviously that's why I don't really trade these pairs down here because the daily kind of range is a lot smaller. All right, so if we look at Friday. So it was not too bad. So 70 pips on, say, NZD, USD, but then if we were to look at, say, GBP, did I put NZD there? Sorry, for Thursday. And then if we were to look at GBP on Thursday, you will see it's going to be a lot more, 140. All right, and I'm going to show you as well, probably one of the worst ones, Euro GBP. Right, Thursday, this is moved. There you go. 30 pips. All right, so you would have to catch this absolutely perfect at the top or the bottom just to get that 30 pips. But let's have a we've got a few minutes. So let's have a quick go through NZD USD. All right, so here we go. Overall here, monthly is looking bearish. We can see here, right? We've been trending to the downside since June 2014, and still trending. So, monthly wise, this month is gonna, finish obviously below previous month. It's a very, very bearish candle, and this could end up down here. So that's one thing to be aware of here. We're weekly, last two weeks have been terrible. We've obviously broken through this level of support here, right? We're currently coming in to attack this level of support here, which obviously it did test. and then we could potentially be looking to test this level of support here. All right, you just want to break your pairs down nice and easy, So we obviously have to be aware. We have had a run of 250 peps just straight to the downside. All right, so like I always, say in trading, as you can see, what goes down must come up, what goes down must come up. Trend does happen, and obviously NZD USD does like to trend. So we need to obviously wait and see, what the market anticipation is going to be. Is there going to be that anticipation where we obviously carry on from Friday where there's an overall kind of a bit of a reluctancy on the dollar, or are we going to continue to break through? I think what my kind of preference would be to be selling from here, and have a nice retracement into this kind of area, and then obviously that continuation, and hopefully come and test these lows here. We could get this retracement tomorrow and Monday, and then when US dollar really starts to kick in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we could see a nice push to the downside here. But that's what I'll be waiting on. It would be this area here, and would also be this area here. All right, again, if obviously we break through here, then we know in regards to the daily and a weekly time frame, there's not going to be much support until we get down here. So that would be that one. Hope that helped, Jim. Andy, how do you group all your pairs in the watch list? Okay, so very, very easy. All right. You just right click, and then what you do is you add a section. All right. And basically, all these are, sections. I've got my risk on, risk off to obviously help me identify, what the overall risk appetite is. I've got obviously yields, the dollar, I've got dollar crosses. You obviously can't have all of them in multiple, so that the only one where I've got all of them in is yen. And obviously what this helps me do is very, very quickly helps me obviously identify what is potentially stronger, and obviously what is potentially weaker. And then I've got obviously AUD, which these are the only ones that I use. And then obviously I've got some others and some crypto. Bitcoin was starting to pump, but obviously, yeah, it has pumped a little bit today. Not too much, but obviously, we've got this is quite a key, level here. So I do think that this is going to be tested about 112. So we'll have to wait and see. What are your thoughts on gold? Let's just have a look here. Gold, so Moha, gold, Mohammed gold. Um, let's have a look through some of these. There we go. Gold. We've got 4 minutes left, so let's have a look on gold. Is just pure, I don't want to sell it. All right. We took a, nice buy trade here. Remember, we're at all-time highs. The only thing you can really mark up on gold is what is happening. You can't look at monthly because they're at all-time high. You can't look at weekly because they're at all-time highs. So daily you could mark a couple, but nothing really major. So you could mark this one here. You could mark the actual all-time high. And then you'd be looking right, you know what, if we do get this price dip down here, then we could, but gold, what you also have to uh, accept is gold hasn't ever, moved like it has done recently. It's moving crazy. I mean, you could argue it is all due to the tariffs. I'd probably take out this one here, and I probably would be looking to buy, like I always mention, from any of these three areas here. That would be one. This would be number two. Very, very easy. Don't overcomplicate it. And this would be number three here. All right. These would be the three areas where I'd be looking to buy. I can't look to sell it until we cleanly, if we're looking at this on a daily, we've obviously got heavy support here, right? We would have to break through all of this for me to start to change my obviously overall appetite here. But I mean, Friday might be a good kind of telltale. We've obviously got unemployment rate, we've got non-farm payroll. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens here. But yeah, those would be kind of my three areas. Obviously, it might change, during each day, depending on what type of the trading strategy you trade. But yeah, that is what I would be looking at for these particular for gold. If I was looking at it as a weaker head and I really, really wanted to catch that perfect entry, that is what I'd be looking for. Just these three areas here. Probably not even down here. You could probably even make it a bit smaller. So something like this would be what I'd be looking at. These three areas here. So yeah, well, I hope everyone's enjoyed this. And yeah, we'll obviously be back trading live at 8 o'clock in the morning. Hands up if you've enjoyed it. Ah, that's good. Good to see. Good to see. Right. Yeah. So obviously we'll be trading live again tomorrow. We're going to do it every single day this week, 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. I've tweaked my trading strategy, slightly. So it'd be interesting to see obviously how we get on this week. So yeah, it'd be good to finish. We've got obviously Monday and Tuesday left of September, so it'd be good to finish with an absolute smack. So yeah, I hope everyone has a great evening, and I'll be back live. Have a good one, guys.